This is a Rogue Media Network podcast. Central Texas Life with Ann Harder presents Central Texas Events.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Central Texas Events, and it is a very special event coming up in Waco on May 13th. It's a Tuesday at noon in the Brazos Room of the Waco Convention Center, and it is Council for Life Central Texas Annual Banquet. And I have with me here in the studio Jackie Johnson, who is vice chairman of the board, and Berkley Knas and Carole Ellis, who are co-chairman of the event. And this is going to be great. Several hundred people come to it, right, Berkley?
Yes, we will sell out at 770. That is our max number that can fit in the Waco Convention Center Brazos Ballroom. And we are almost sold out, Ann.
Well, it's exciting. And Jackie, just a little bit about what this money will go for.
Sure. This is our sixth year to do a luncheon, and the money that is raised through this luncheon goes to our beneficiaries. This year we have 9 beneficiaries. Last year we had 8, and they're carefully vetted. And these organizations, these beneficiaries, are the hands and feet on the ground that do all the hard work to help raise money and do provide services for young families that find themselves in a crisis pregnancy situation.
And Carole, this is your second year to chair this luncheon. I mean, not a glutton for punishment, right? This is I suspect it's a joy of your heart to do this.
It truly is. And just seeing, you have these, the enemy always comes against things that the Lord is doing to save lives, but the Lord always comes through, and it's just been really neat to see every hurdle, is always taken care of, and God always provides.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm also on the board, so
Yes.
Everyone knows that, kind of helping with the marketing and the PR. But you mentioned beneficiaries. One of the big beneficiaries is something called 40 Days for Life. And we happen to have with us via the miracle of technology and StreamYard, the amazing Shawn Carney from Houston, Texas. And he is going to be our keynote speaker on the 13th. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. And I'm really looking forward to the luncheon. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, you are very much in demand as a speaker. You founded 40 Days for Life. Let's just back up a little bit. And how did that all start? Did you have a sort of a blinding moment where, I need to do something to save babies? Or did you always kind of have a sense that this is the right thing for you to do?
Well, that's a good question because and it was always a sense that abortion was bad. I'm from the eastern part of Texas. I'm from Tyler, Texas. So we didn't have an abortion facility. Abortion was definitely talked about at church and within our family, all of us obviously being against it, but it wasn't something that I encountered. And then in high school, I had the chance to hear at an event similar to what we're having in May. I heard Dr. Tony Levantino, a late-term abortion doctor who had a conversion. I heard him speak, and I was 16 years old. I also heard Carole Everett speak at a very young age, who owned 5 abortion facilities throughout Dallas, Fort Worth. And it just really struck me. But it wasn't until I went to A&M and my, then girlfriend, now my wife, she would go out and peacefully pray at the local Planned Parenthood abortion facility. And at the time, I didn't even know Planned Parenthood did abortions. And so I went out and prayed with her. And it just struck me as, an 18 or 19-year-old to see my peers go in and have abortions while everything else just kind of goes on and the world, moves forward. It really broke my heart. And I think it's important for all of us at some point getting into this beautiful work. Abortion breaks our heart, and we feel that we need to do something about it.
Well, I many years ago had the opportunity to interview Carole Everett and a lady named Abby Johnson, who I think you know. And so let's talk a little bit about that, the movie about her life, really unplanned, and you and your wife figure as characters in that film. That was 2019? Is that when that was? Yes. 2019. So, and I got to hear you in an interview setting with Abby talk about your relationship. Here you were on the pro-life side, and she was the head of an abortion clinic. How did
Yeah,
that go?
we came up on just different sides. She volunteered for Planned Parenthood during the time I was volunteering for our local pro-life organization, the Coalition for Life. We launched 40 Days for Life from College Station. She was the director of her Planned Parenthood. At that time, she became the Employee of the Year for Planned Parenthood in 2008. And we often did, as I started leading the local organization, we did media interviews against one another's points, which are funny clips now. And then, she did listen to us. We formed a relationship. The movie's very accurate, by the way. Unplanned is a great movie. They made us part of it for accuracy. Not just they bought the rights of the story, but they could have, said whatever they wanted. But the producers and the directors wanted us to be part of it, both Abby and Mary Lisa and I, for accuracy. And it's very accurate. It's very accurate. And they kind of show our relationship through the years, different conversations we would have, different interactions we would have. And Abby was way too open to us, and she was definitely, which was the work of the Holy Spirit, but she was definitely very interested in other people approving of her work. And when you do work, particularly legitimate healthcare, you just don't worry about that. You don't have to apologize for working at a dentist's office. You don't have to apologize for doing oncology or cardiovascular surgery. But she always kind of had this justification, and that was such a beautiful blessing because it was such a signal to us that she was open. And then, of course, when she witnessed an abortion in front of our eyes, she had a conversion and came right over into my office.
But a particular poignant story she told was about your wife and the first time they ever locked eyes, ever met. And I think it's depicted in the movie, but she said it was a little different. There was no fence between them. But Abby just told her, well, I had an abortion. And your wife's reaction began that, I think, making her heart soft toward just who the people were who were opposing what she was doing and what Planned Parenthood was doing.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's a beautiful story because Abby, and most women in general, as y'all know from your wonderful work, they don't tell a lot of people that they've had an abortion, particularly in the first 5 or 10 years after they've had it. And basically, she told Mary Lisa, who's, in my opinion, the sweetest and most beautiful person on earth. She's easy to talk to. Sometimes she doesn't want me talking as much as I want to talk to her because I'll go on and on, but she's easy to talk to. And she had this warming effect with Abby of, hey, why are you volunteering here? At the time, Abby was a volunteer, and to sort of downplay it, which is very typical. We see this more now. Abby sort of wants to make abortion kind of casual, like, abortion's really not that big of a deal. I've actually had an abortion. And Mary Lisa just stopped and looked at her with love and said, I'm so sorry that you went through that. And that really was the first opening for Abby because, we can talk about it casually. That doesn't work. We can pound our hand on the table. That doesn't work. But when somebody else acknowledges the reality of abortion, which is that it is painful, it is a tough decision. It's not something any woman grows up wanting out of their life, and to acknowledge that, with love and with compassion, is really beautiful. And Abby's story, I think, exemplifies that. It's why, I've written 5 pro-life books, but if you can give one book to somebody, no matter where they are, whether they support abortion or whether they don't, it has to be Unplanned. It has to be Unplanned. It tells the story better than any other book out there. And certainly the movie does that of both what the human heart is capable of, good and evil, and what our Lord, more importantly, is capable of for all of us.
Well, we are just so delighted that you could take some time to be with us to talk about, your appearance in Waco coming up on May 13th. 40 Days for Life. Let's talk more specifically about your organization. Now, you founded this back during your A&M days. Is that correct?
Yes, I was working for a wonderful man named David B. Wright, and he and my wife and I just saw our abortion numbers going up. So we decided to do a 24-hour peaceful 40-day vigil outside of that Planned Parenthood in Bryan, Texas. And that was the first ever 40 Days for Life in 2004, and then we launched it nationally in 2007.
And so why, this was a question I saw come up, why 24-hour prayer?
Because we weren't smart at the time. And so we just thought, hey, we'll fill every hour of prayer. It looked better on paper than when we started. I say that. But I think God was just sort of motivating us. You ever step out in faith and go, why did I do that? Start thinking like Peter. So we did 24 hours basically to pull out all the stops. I would say an act of desperation. We actually had a wonderful group. It was the Knights of Columbus, who took the 11 o'clock at night to 7 a.m. every morning, calling it the night shift because they were so inspired by the task, I guess, to try to cover 24 hours. Today, now that 40 Days for Life is in 1,800 cities, we're in 64 countries. About 30% of our vigils are 24 hours. 70% are all the business hours, or 12 hours a day outside of a local abortion facility. But there's nothing like the power of presence and praying at a location where evil goes on. And it made such a tremendous impact. We didn't know at the time, right? Because the devil wants to tell you you're not doing any good. It's a waste of time. But the impact that it had on the workers, and one small thing that we just didn't think about, we were there when they got to work, and we were there when they left. And if later that evening they went to a movie, they went out on a date, they would drive by, they'd see that we were still there. And there's something, we're so divided right now, and people say you can't see somebody else's viewpoint. I don't believe that at all. It's not true in the pro-life movement. People become pro-life all the time. It's very common, and it's not common on a lot of other issues. But that's commitment. When somebody sees that you're committed, the only thing that explains that is you think it's really important. And if you think it's really important because it's life or death, they'll explore whether that's true. Is it really life and death? Isn't this the most common surgery in our country? Why in the world would you stand out there at 2:00 in the morning and pray and be happy to do so? And so I think that that's very powerful. And that's just the story of any good, a Christian throughout the ages. The explanation for their example wasn't themselves, that they were a good person or really a nice guy or trying to impress everybody. It's that they had a peaceful joy that radiated the gospel that attracted other people to them.
We have a different administration now, and so I want to kind of jump to current events if we can. Just very recently, the flagship clinic in Manhattan closed after your group, 40 Days for Life, I think had been praying there since 2013, something like
2013.
2013.
Yeah, 2013.
That's a long time to see the culmination of a prayer. Just your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say that's the greatest victory in the history of 40 Days for Life, honestly. I don't know what could beat that. Besides, obviously changed hearts and minds. But as far as abortion facilities closing, that is the flagship Planned Parenthood in the country. It is dedicated to their founder, Margaret Sanger. It's in Manhattan, and it's one that it doesn't matter where they do abortions. We go everywhere. 40 Days for Life, our largest state is California. Our second largest is New York. Those are places where we thrive. And so, but in all practicality, we don't expect the Planned Parenthoods in New York to start closing. Although we've closed one in Queens, we've closed two in the Bronx, but Manhattan, no way. They'll do anything to keep that open. But it was a good location for a 40 Days for Life. It's on the street. You have to walk past us to go inside. It's Manhattan. We're all familiar with that. You have access to the women. And if you go out long enough and you turn enough people away and change enough hearts and minds, the business dries up. And Planned Parenthood in New York is very much about the bottom line. And so they closed it. And you see other, pro-abortion groups now mad at Planned Parenthood for closing this. It's absolutely beautiful. And the only thing that can explain it is the power of a peaceful prayer vigil and the power of prayer and fasting itself and just having faith. I didn't have that faith that facility would close. I can name 100 other abortion facilities in America that are on the brink of closing right now. That's not even close to the top 100, and that's what's beautiful. I know y'all have experienced. I've experienced it in my 25 years in the pro life movement. God just provides these miracles, and we're not entitled to sort of see the victories, right? Or to see the fruit. We're just called to be faithful, not successful, as Mother Teresa said. But boy, does he provide the fruit and show us to keep us going. And it is an absolutely beautiful victory. And it's awesome. That is actually the fifth Planned Parenthood in the state of New York to close within the last 12 months in a post-Roe America. It shows it doesn't matter if some of these states run around and celebrate abortion and prop abortion up. This is about hearts, and this is about minds, and this is about reaching out to women who do not want to do this. And when they turn around, you save a baby. And if you do it enough times, you can close notorious abortion facilities.
One big concern, though, we still have, and that has to do with the abortion pill. So
Mhm.
let's talk a bit about that.
Well, now, since the overturning of Roe, the federal government under Biden went crazy and basically tried to make abortion their sacrament. And we saw the Pentagon pay for abortions for women who wanted to travel. We saw the FDA deregulate abortion pills. This is the most crazy thing that nobody was talking about doing. Planned Parenthood wasn't talking about doing, the day before Roe fell. And so we see this test run where they basically they had 8, I think they now have 14 states that you can mail pills out. The pills are not being mailed all across the country. That's sort of a myth. That's what they want. But that's not being done legally right now. It's being done in a handful of states. And you have states like Texas and Missouri and Alabama and Tennessee where it's illegal to ship pills in or out of those states. But what you're seeing is that abortion pills went from about 40% of all abortions to like 73%. I think we've hit the max on that. You're starting to see that number come down. And the main reason that I think you'll continue to see abortion pills come down, there's 2 things. The widespread ability of abortion pill reversal, which is a process where you can reverse the abortion if the woman wants to within 24 hours. We have a beautiful story coming out soon from 40 Days for Life where a female physician, I guess to protect her career, she actually administered RU46 on herself and regretted it 2 hours later and went through abortion pill reversal and is about to give birth. So it does work, and that's widely available. It started in California, but now it's everywhere. A lot of doctors are trained on it. Number 2, abortion pill RU46, the abortion pills don't have a good word of mouth. And this is what, you see the example in Unplanned, the movie where Abby takes the abortion pills and just the brutal process. It's not like a surgical abortion. And Abby's a good example. A lot of people that work at Planned Parenthood find themselves talking women out of taking the pills. It's supposed to be kind of like, you pop an Advil, you take a nap, and it all kind of goes away. So it's easy to sell because it's a pill. It's no big deal. But the physical pain of it and the horrific witnessing that the woman goes through passing the baby. And we've heard stories of oftentimes they're at home. They have that horrible memory of their own bathroom. They've been in movie theaters, they've been in shopping malls, and they all say the same thing, which is, it was a baby. I could see my baby. And just the psychological, much less spiritual ramifications of that. So it doesn't travel well word of mouth wise. And that matters with abortion. That really matters with abortion. And so that's one of the reasons I think we've seen that number halt. This is the future, though, regardless. Our abortion pills, most of them are still distributed through brick and mortar. But a lot of them are going through the mail to certain states that allow that. That is completely deregulated, by the way, unless your state has good pro-life laws. But otherwise, you don't know if a teenager in the house is opening the package with pills. You don't know any of that. It's totally deregulated in some of these far left-leaning states. It's very dangerous. And really, it's a knee-jerk reaction to the overturning of Roe because it's not safe. I mean, now we're up to 25% of the women go to the ER. I mean, that's absurd. That's crazy. And so, it's dangerous for women, obviously dangerous for the baby, and completely deregulated. I am confident. You mentioned the new administration, and even RFK has said this many, many times, that he wants to investigate abortion pills and regulate abortion pills, and that's desperately needed.
Yeah, I'd like to address that quickly, at least on the state level. I know State Senator Brian Hughes has a couple of bills, if you want to comment on those, the Woman and Child Protection Act. And yeah, so anything about that is something maybe we could do to encourage the passage of a bill.
Absolutely. We'll definitely encourage the passage of those because it's common sense. And Texas already has, we're essentially abortion free as a state. We went from 365 abortions a day to 4 per year. And the abortion pills, they are trying, it's just this constant beatdown in Austin that they are trying to get abortion pills spread throughout Texas. And so we need to support these bills that regulates it. I believe also, don't quote me on this, but I believe those bills do what our heartbeat bill did, which was allow civilians to prosecute abortion doctors who illegally use these abortion pills, as you would with any other illegal drug. And those are very, very effective because there's already a shortage of doctors willing to do abortions or prescribe the pills, and that would further help.
Yeah, let me get the names of those 2 bills. One is the Life of the Mother Act, and the other is the Woman and Child Protection Act. So yeah, that's a little call to action
Yes.
for all of us on that. Shawn, it's been delightful to visit with you. Anything else you want to add?
No, I want to encourage people to RSVP and can come out on
Yeah.
on May the 13th. We're going to cover a lot, and not only cover the great work that y'all do, but I'm definitely going to cover sort of the abortion landscape. And as you mentioned, that has changed. That changes every 3 days, it seems, in post-Roe America. But we have our finger on the pulse. We're in 1,800 cities across all 50 states and in 64 different countries. So I'll be sure to give a good update on what's going on and how we can end abortion in America, once and for all.
Well, you've been a delight, and thank you for the life-saving work you are so passionate about and dedicated to. We appreciate it and appreciate you ladies as well for all the work you're doing here in Central Texas. Look forward to the luncheon coming up on May 13th at the Brazos Room of the Waco Convention Center. If someone hasn't gotten a ticket, how could they do that or reserve a table?
Yes, and we do have tickets available. You can go to counselforlife.org under events, Central Texas, again, May 13th. That's a Tuesday. We have a pre-luncheon reception for everyone at 11. Luncheon starts at noon. Shawn Carney, we are so excited to have you here to speak. And afterwards, we will have books available from Shawn. We look forward to having everyone and spreading that message of life in Central Texas.
All right. Thank you. Well said. Thank you all. And thank you for being with us for this special edition of Central Texas Events. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
This has been a Rogue Media Network